The sun hung low over the cracked asphalt of Route 17, casting long shadows across the dusty shoulder where a little girl stood alone. She couldn't have been more than 8, her faded sundress fluttering in the hot wind like a flag of surrender. In her small hands, she clutched a cardboard sign scrawled in crayon, "Brownies, 50C, help a smile." A rickety table beside her held a tray of lopsided treats wrapped in plastic, their chocolate edges melting under the relentless desert heat. Day after day she waved at the passing trucks and motorcycles, her arm tireless but her eyes hollow, as if the weight of the world had already settled on her narrow shoulders. No one stopped. The world rushed by, indifferent, leaving her in a cloud of exhaust and forgotten dreams. But today, something shifted. A low rumble echoed from the horizon, growing into a thunderous roar that vibrated the ground beneath her feet. Ethan "Hawk" Ramirez crested the rise on his weathered Harley, the engine's growl a familiar companion to his scarred soul. At 42, Hawk led the Iron Vow Riders, a brotherhood forged in the fires of old wars and unbreakable oaths. His face, etched with lines from a decade of regrets, hid the ghosts of a promise he'd buried deep: to protect the innocent, no matter the cost. He'd lost his own daughter to a senseless accident years ago, a wound that never healed, turning him into a wanderer who chased redemption on 2 wheels. The convoy behind him, 64 strong, leather-clad guardians of the forgotten, stretched like a steel serpent, their bikes gleaming under the fading light. They were en route to a rally in the Badlands, but Hawk's sharp eyes caught the flicker of that small figure by the road. He signaled a slowdown, the pack braking in unison, tires crunching gravel as they pulled over in a protective arc. The girl froze, her waving hand dropping, as the bikers encircled her like unexpected sentinels. Hawk killed his engine first, the sudden silence amplifying the distant hum of cicadas and the faint scent of warm chocolate wafting from her tray. He dismounted with a creak of boots on parched earth, his couter adorned with the Iron Vow patch, a clenched fist over a broken chain, swaying as he approached. "Hey, kid," he said, his voice gravelly but gentle, crouching to her level. Her eyes, wide with a mix of fear and hope, darted to the sea of tattooed arms and rumbling machines. "Those brownies look like they could use a home. How about I take a dozen?" She blinked, clutching the table's edge. "Really? They're for my mom. She's sick and we need—" Her voice trailed off, small and cracked, revealing the shadows behind her brave facade. No father in sight, just whispers of hardship in a roadside trailer park where dreams went to die. Hawk's jaw tightened. He knew that look, the quiet desperation of a child carrying burdens too heavy. He pulled out a worn wallet, not with pity, but with the steady resolve of a man who'd once failed his own. "Tell you what," he said, handing her a crisp 20. "These aren't just brownies. They're a down payment on something bigger." The other riders watched, engines idling like patient beasts, their faces a mosaic of weathered loyalty. Word spread through the ranks like wildfire on dry tinder. Jax, Hawk's second in command, a burly veteran with a prosthetic leg from their shared service days, leaned in from his bike. "Boss, she's out here alone every damn day. Locals say her folks are in deep debts, illness, the works." The girl, whose name was Lily, nodded slowly, her fingers tracing the edge of her sign. "I waved to everyone, but you stopped." Hawk felt that old promise stir, the one he'd made to his late wife under a desert sky, to stand for those who couldn't stand alone. He glanced at his crew, brothers bound not by blood, but by oaths etched in ink and fire. "Brothers," he called, his voice cutting through the wind, "we ride for the lost. This one's ours now." As the sun dipped below the jagged horizon, painting the sky in strokes of crimson and gold, The Iron Vow riders didn't just buy brownies, they claimed a mission. Hawk knelt again, meeting Lily's gaze. "You got a home, kid. Real one." She shook her head, tears welling but not falling, her small hand slipping into his calloused one. The touch was electric, a spark that reignited the fire in his chest. "Then we're taking you to ours. Not for today, but for good. We promise." The words hung heavy, a vow that echoed the club's creed: loyalty until the end, justice for the voiceless. Lily's face lit up, a tentative smile breaking through, as if she'd waved to angels in disguise. The convoy reformed, but slower now, protective. Lily rode with Hawk, perched safely in front of him, her tray of brownies tucked into a saddlebag. The road ahead stretched into twilight, the scent of gasoline mingling with the sweet aroma of chocolate, a sensory bridge between her solitary stand and their unbreakable circle. Whispers among the riders spoke of plans, calling in favors from old allies, a nurse named Sophia who'd patched them up after too many close calls, a mechanic buddy to fix up their rigs while they sorted Lily's world. But beneath it all pulsed the moral core. Against a system that overlooked the small, the Iron Vow would be the shield. Miles blurred into the gathering dusk, the pack's headlights piercing the dark like stars on the move. Hawk's mind raced with memories, the explosion that took his leg's mobility from Jack's, the betrayal by corrupt officials that scattered their ranks years back. This wasn't just rescue, it was redemption, a chance to honor the promises time had tried to erase. Lily leaned back against him, her breathing steady for the first time in days, the vibration of the Harley lulling her toward trust. The desert whispered secrets of endurance, dust devils dancing in their wake. As 65 souls, rough-hewn angels, rode toward a horizon where one girl's wave had summoned a storm of change. Yet as the trailer park lights flickered into view, Hawk sensed the shadows deepening. Lily's mother lay frail in a dim room, the air thick with the tang of medicine and despair. Whispers of local enforcers, men who'd preyed on the vulnerable for years, hinted at trouble brewing. Hawk's grip tightened on the handlebars. This promise wouldn't be easy. It would demand everything: loyalty tested, justice carved from corruption's grip, and a family reforged in the heat of trial. But for the first time in years, Hawk felt whole, the road ahead not a escape but a path to healing. The brownies cooling in the bag symbolized it all, small acts blooming into legacies of honor. The trailer park loomed like a forgotten graveyard under the moon's pale gaze, rusted mobile homes huddled together against the encroaching night. Flickering porch lights cast erratic shadows, and the air hung heavy with the scent of stale smoke and overgrown weeds. Hawk eased the Harley to a stop at the edge of the gravel lot, his engine's rumble fading into the quiet chirp of crickets. Lily clung to him, her small frame tense now, the earlier wonder replaced by a flicker of fear as familiar sights stirred old worries. The rest of the Iron Vow riders fanned out behind, their bikes forming a silent barrier, headlights dimmed to avoid drawing eyes too soon. Jax dismounted with a metallic clink from his prosthetic, scanning the perimeter with the instincts of a man who'd stared down worse than this. "Easy, brothers," Hawk murmured, his voice low as he helped Lily down. Her sneakers crunched on the loose stones, and she pointed toward a sagging unit at the far end, its door ajar like an unspoken invitation to trouble. "That's home," she whispered, her hand finding Hawk's again, a lifeline in the dimness. He nodded, the weight of her trust settling like an old oath renewed. Inside, the air was thicker, laced with the faint bitterness of herbal remedies and unwashed linens. Lily's mother, Clara, lay on a threadbare couch, her face gaunt and pale, eyes fluttering open at the sound of footsteps. She was a shadow of resilience, her body marked by the slow drain of illness that no roadside plea could mend. Clara's gaze sharpened as the bikers filled the doorway, a wall of leather and resolve. "Who?" she rasped, struggling to sit up. But Lily rushed to her side, words tumbling out in a rush. "Mom, they stopped. They bought all the brownies and they're gonna help." Hawk stepped forward, removing his helmet to reveal the silver streaks in his dark hair, lines of hardship etched deep. "Ma'am, name's Hawk. Your girl's been out there waving like a beacon. We couldn't ride by." Clara's eyes, weary but fierce, searched his face, then the faces behind him, men who'd traded uniforms for kutas, carrying scars from battles that left invisible wounds. She nodded faintly, a spark of guarded hope igniting. "The doctors say treatments but money. It's all talk." Jax hung back, his broad shoulders filling the frame as he assessed the room. Pill bottles scattered like fallen soldiers, a single bulb buzzing overhead. He'd seen this before, in the aftermath of their service days, when brothers came home to empty promises from a system that turned its back. "We've got connections," he said gruffly, pulling out a phone. "Sophia, our nurse friend, she's patched us up more times than I can count. She'll come by dawn." The name hung like a promise, Sophia's reputation preceding her. A woman who'd left the city lights for the open road, binding wounds with steady hands and unyielding compassion. But as the night deepened, the first cracks in their sanctuary appeared. A low growl of engines approached from the park's shadowed fringes. Not Harleys, but souped-up trucks, their tires kicking up dust like warnings. Local enforcers, the kind who squeeze the vulnerable for protection fees, their authority a thin veil over greed. The leader, a stocky man named Harlan with a sneer that twisted his features, stepped out under the glare of his headlights, flanked by two others. "Heard you had visitors, Clara," he called, his voice oily, eyes narrowing at the biker line. "This ain't a charity run. Debts don't vanish because some outlaws show up." Hawk felt the old fire stir, the promise to his lost daughter whispering against the rage. He positioned himself between the door and the threat, his crew rising like a tide behind him. Lily pressed close to her mother, the scent of cooling brownies from the saddlebag, a faint comfort in the tension. "We're not here for trouble," Hawk said evenly, his tone measured, like a man weighing oaths against chaos. "But we're here for them. You got a problem with that?" Harlan laughed, a bark that echoed off the metal walls. But his eyes betrayed calculation. These weren't drifters. They were a force bound by something deeper than fear. The standoff stretched, the air electric with unspoken challenges. Jax's hand rested near his belt, not drawing but ready, his prosthetic a reminder of costs already paid. Sophia arrived sooner than expected, her van cutting through the night like a healer's arrow, tires humming softly as she pulled up. She was a vision of quiet strength, mid-30s, with auburn hair tied back and a medical kit slung over her shoulder. Her own scars from lost shifts in underfunded wards hidden beneath a steady gaze. "Let's see what we're dealing with," she said, brushing past Harlan without a glance, her focus on Clara. The enforcer shifted, uncomfortable under the biker's unyielding stare, but he pressed. "This changes nothing. Payments due by week's end, or we take what's owed." Hawk's mind raced, memories flooding. The betrayal years back, when corrupt badges had turned on their own during a routine stop, scattering the club and costing lives. This was that poison again, seeping into the cracks of the forgotten. "Walk away. Harlan," he warned, voice low thunder, "or we'll make sure the truth rides out with us." The words carried the weight of their creed. Justice not through fists, but through exposure, loyalty that exposed the rot. Harlan hesitated, the numerical odds against him, then spat on the ground and retreated, his truck's engine roaring defiance into the dark. As the dust settled, Sophia worked methodically, her hands gentle on Clara's arm, drawing vitals with the precision of someone who'd chosen this life over surrender. "She's dehydrated, needs real care, not this patchwork," she murmured to Hawk, her eyes meeting his in silent understanding. Lily watched wide-eyed as the bikers set to work, one rigging a generator for steady light, another fetching water from a nearby well, their actions a symphony of quiet purpose. The trailer transformed subtly, the air lightening with the aroma of fresh coffee brewing on a portable stove, a ritual that bound them all. Hawk knelt by Lily, the moonlight filtering through cracked blinds like silver threads. "This promise, we keep it. Your mum's fight is ours now." She nodded, a small smile returning, the wave that started it all echoing in her eyes. But Harlan's retreat was no victory. Whispers among the riders spoke of deeper entanglements, loans from shady lenders tied to bigger corruption, a web that threatened to ensnare them all. Jax clapped Hawk's shoulder, his grip firm. "We've faced worse, boss. This family's growing." The night watch began, engines idling softly, guardians against the shadows. Dawn crept in with a rosy hue, painting the park in tentative warmth. Sophia coordinated the next steps, a safe transport to a clinic run by old allies, far from prying eyes. Clara, stabilized for the journey, squeezed Lily's hand, gratitude etching her features. The convoy prepared to move, but Hawk lingered. The road's call tempered by this new bond. Redemption wasn't a solitary ride, it was this. 65 souls weaving a shield of honor, one act at a time. Yet, as they rolled out, a distant siren wailed, hinting at pursuits yet to unfold, the promise tested in the light of day. And now I invite you to leave in the comments where you're watching from and the exact hour you heard this story. We wish to know how far these northern confessions travel and at what moments they reach you. The first rays of dawn sliced through the trailer park like golden blades, illuminating the convoy as it stirred to life. Hawk's Harley purred beneath him, its chrome catching the light in fleeting glints, while the air carried the crisp bite of morning dew mixed with the lingering earthiness of last night's coffee grounds. Lily sat bundled in a spare jacket from one of the riders, her small face pressed against the window of Sophia's van, watching her mother settle into the passenger seat with careful assistance. Clara's breathing had steadied overnight, and thanks to the IV drip Sophia had rigged with portable efficiency, but her eyes held a quiet storm, gratitude laced with the fear of what lay ahead. The Iron Vow riders formed ranks around the van, a moving fortress of rumbling engines and steadfast silhouettes, their kutas rippling like banners in the gentle breeze. Hawk twisted the throttle, leading the pack onto the cracked ribbon of Route 17, the desert unfolding in vast undulating waves of sand and scrub. The distant siren from the night before had faded into memory, but its echo lingered in his gut, a warning that Harlan's kind didn't slink away easily. Jax rode flank on his customized chopper, the prosthetic leg braced firmly, his eyes scanning the rear view for any tails. "Clinic's 2 hours out, boss," he called over the wind, voice cutting through the roar like a trusted blade. "Old Doc Harlan, wait, no relation to that snake, owes us from the flood run last year. He'll clear her for the long haul." Hawk nodded, the vibration of the road sinking with the pulse of resolve in his chest. This wasn't just transport, it was a vow in motion, pulling Lily's fractured world into the orbit of their chosen family. Sophia drove steady, her hands sure on the wheel. The van's interior a cocoon of soft beeps from monitors and the faint scent of antiseptic. Lily chattered softly to her mother, words tumbling like pebbles in a stream. Tales of the Brownies that had summoned these angels on wheels, as she called them. Clara listened, her frail hand stroking Lily's hair, the touch a fragile anchor. Outside, the landscape blurred. Saguaros standing sentinel, their arms raised against the climbing sun, and mirages shimmering on the horizon like false promises. Hawk's mind drifted to his own ghosts. The accident that stole his daughter, the hollow echo of a hospital room where he'd sworn never to look away again. Lily's wave had cracked that armor, reminding him that redemption rode shotgun, not in isolation. An hour in, the lead bike's radio crackled to life, Jax's voice urgent. "We've got company. 3 trucks, closing fast from the east. Harlan's crew, by the look of those jacked-up grills." Hawk glanced in his mirror, spotting the dust plumes rising like vengeful spirits. The enforcers had regrouped, their vehicles hulking shadows against the morning glare, engines bellowing defiance. No sirens this time, just raw intent, the kind that thrived on intimidation in these forgotten stretches. "Form up!" Hawk barked into his comms, the order rippling through the pack. The riders tightened formation, bikes weaving into a protective wedge around the van, their presence a thunderous deterrent. Lily peeked out the window, her eyes widening at the chase unfolding, but Sophia's calm voice steadied her. "Hold on, sweet one. These men know how to handle the wind." The pursuit intensified as the road narrowed into a serpentine cut through red rock canyons, the walls echoing the growl of engines like a canyon's roar. Harlan's lead truck surged forward, swerving close enough to clip a saddlebag, sending sparks flying in a brief, heart-stopping flash. Hawk accelerated, his Harley leaning into the curve with the precision of old instincts, positioning himself as bait. Memories surged, nights in distant sands where loyalty meant covering your brother's blind side, where turning back wasn't an option. "Stay the course," he shouted, the wind whipping his words into the fray. Jax peeled off with two others, flanking the pursuers in a bold maneuver, their bikes darting like hawks on the hunt. One enforcer veered too wide, tires screeching on loose gravel, the truck fishtailing into a spin that kicked up a blinding cloud of dust. In the van, Clara gripped the armrest, her face ashen, but Lily's voice rose fierce and small. "They're like knights, Mum. They won't let them win." Sophia nodded, her foot firm on the accelerator, navigating the chaos with the focus of someone who'd triaged battlefields disguised as ER shifts. The standoff peaked at a wide overlook where Hawk signaled a halt, the convoy braking in a synchronized skid that raised a wall of sand. The enforcers pulled up short, outnumbered and outmaneuvered. Harlan's face twisted in fury behind the windshield. He stepped out, gesturing wildly, his demands lost in the wind, a litany of debts and territories, the corrupt underbelly of a system that preyed on the weak. Hawk dismounted, striding forward with measured steps, his boots crunching the parched earth, the sun beating down like judgment. The riders fanned out behind him, a line of unyielding resolve, their engines idling in low menace. "This ends here," Hawk said, his voice steady as canyon stone, eyes locked on Harlan. "You squeeze the broken for your gain, but we're done watching. Clara's under our wing now. Touch her world again, and the truth about your protection rolls out to every ear from here to the border." It wasn't a threat of violence, but of exposure, their creed's sharpest weapon, peeling back the veil on institutional rot that had scarred them all. Harlan's sneer faltered, calculating the cost. Whispers of his ties to shady lenders, the badges he'd greased to look the other way. The air thickened with tension, the scent of hot rubber and sweat hanging heavy as the desert held its breath. Jack stepped up, his presence a quiet force, the prosthetic glinting in the light, a badge of battles won through grit, not greed. "We've got names, dates, walk, or it all unravels." Harlan's crew shifted uneasily, the numerical edge meaningless against this unbreakable front. After a long beat, he climbed back into his truck, engine revving in impotent rage, the convoy of enforcers peeling away into the dust, tails between their legs. The overlook fell silent, save for the triumphant hum of Harleys, the sun cresting higher as if approving the stand. Relief washed over the group like a cool breeze, but Hawk knew it was fleeting. Sophia checked Clara through the van's window, her updates clipped and professional. Stable, but the chase had taken its toll. Lily emerged, hugging Hawk's leg with unexpected strength, her whisper carrying the weight of newfound faith. "You kept the promise." He ruffled her hair, the gesture simple yet profound, binding them tighter in this web of chosen kin. The convoy reformed, rolling onward toward the clinic, the canyons giving way to open plains where wildflowers dotted the roadside like scattered hopes. Yet, As miles accumulated, a deeper shadow loomed. Radio chatter from a scout ahead spoke of roadblocks, official ones this time, whispers of inquiries into the trailer's abandonment. Corruption's tendrils reached further than Harlan's crew, into the very halls meant to protect. Hawk's jaw set, the road's rhythm fueling his determination. This promise demanded more than a ride. It called for unraveling the knots of injustice, one ethical stand at a time. Jax rode closer, clapping his shoulder in silent solidarity, the Brotherhood's pulse beating strong. Lily's wave had summoned not just rescuers, but a reckoning, the desert bearing witness to acts that echoed long after the engines faded. The clinic rose from the haze like a beacon, forged from weathered stone and unyielding hope. Its low-slung buildings nestled against the foothills, where the desert reluctantly yielded to patches of stubborn green. The sun climbed mercilessly toward noon, baking the asphalt into a shimmering mirage that distorted the air, carrying the sharp tang of sagebrush and sun-scorched earth. Hawk throttled back as the convoy approached the gated entrance, the Iron Vow riders parting like a river around Sophia's van, their engines settling into a respectful purr. Dust swirled in lazy eddies from their tires, settling on the chain-link fence that bordered the property, a sanctuary run by old allies, far from the grasping hands of city bureaucrats and small-town tyrants. Sophia pulled into the shaded lot first, killing the engine with a soft sigh, the van's doors sliding open to reveal Clara propped up on a makeshift stretcher, her color returning in faint blooms on her cheeks. Lily hopped out behind her, clutching a crumpled brownie wrapper like a talisman, her eyes darting from the riders to the clinic's faded sign, Haven Medical Outpost. Hawk dismounted, boots hitting the gravel with a crunch that echoed his inner resolve, the weight of the morning's chase still humming in his veins. Jax flanked him, wiping sweat from his brow, the prosthetic legs steady as ever, a testament to the unbreakable bonds that had carried them through fire and fallout. "Doc Harlan's waiting," Jax said, nodding toward the entrance where a grizzled figure in a white coat emerged, his face lined like the canyons they'd just escaped. Inside, the air cooled to a sterile whisper, laced with the faint metallic scent of equipment and the comforting undertone of fresh linens. Doctor Harlan, a bear of a man with a salt-and-pepper beard and eyes that had seen too many overlooked cases, greeted Sophia with a firm handshake, his voice rumbling like distant thunder. "Brought me a fighter, eh? Let's see what we're up against." Clara was wheeled into an exam room, monitors beeping to life under Sophia's watchful guidance, while Lily hovered in the hallway, her small fingers twisting the jacket's hem. Hawk leaned against the wall, arms crossed over his cooter, the Iron Vow patch a silent vow amid the clinical hum. Memories flickered, his daughter's final days in a place like this, the sterile walls closing in like accusations, the promise he'd made to never let innocence slip through the cracks again. The diagnosis came swift and stark, advanced fatigue from untreated condition, compounded by malnutrition and stress, but treatable with the right intervention. Dr. Harlan outlined a plan: IV therapies, rest, and a regimen that could rebuild what the roadside grind had eroded. "She'll need follow-up, somewhere stable," he added, glancing at Hawk with the knowing look of a man who'd patched up the club's wounds after dust-up runs. Not that trailer hellhole. Clara, from her bed, met Hawk's gaze through the half-open door, her voice weak but threaded with steel. "I never asked for this, but Lily waved and you came. That's more than most." The words struck deep, stirring the old oath in Hawk's chest, the one sworn under starlit skies with his late wife to shield the fragile from the storm. But peace shattered like fragile glass when the radio crackled again, a scout's voice cutting through the quiet. "Roadblock ahead, official badges, asking questions about a missing miner and unauthorized transport. Sounds like Harlan's snakes slithered to the law." Hawk's jaw clenched, the scent of antiseptic turning sour in his nostrils. Corruption's web tightened, the enforcers retreat a feint to summon higher shadows, local authorities greased by the same lenders who bled the vulnerable dry. Jax cursed under his breath, his hand instinctively checking his belt. They'll spin it as kidnapping, boss. We move her now, or they box us in. Lily's eyes widened from her perch on a waiting room chair, the innocence in them a stark contrast to the brewing storm, her small voice piping up. They can't take us back, can they? The Brownies. They promised. Hawk knelt to her level, the linoleum cool under his knee, his voice a steady anchor. No one's taking you anywhere you don't want to go, kid. That's our word. Iron vow. The promise hung heavy, a moral bulwark against the institutional tide that had betrayed them before. The false arrests after their service days, when loyalty to country curdled into suspicion from the very shield sworn to protect. Sophia emerged from the room, wiping her hands on her scrubs, her expression a mask of calculated calm. Clara's stable enough for a short haul. There's a back route through the old mining trails. Rough, but it'll shake any tails. Dr. Harlan nodded, slipping them a map etched with hidden paths, his own scars from bucking the system visible in the furrow of his brow. Go, I'll stall with paperwork. Owe you boys from that flood, paying it forward. The convoy reformed under the relentless sun. The van loaded with medical supplies, and Clara secured in the rear, her hand clasped in Lily's. Engines roared to life, a symphony of defiance vibrating through the lot, chrome flashing like drawn steel. Hawk led the way onto the dirt trail, the path twisting into the foothills, where scrub oak clawed at the sky, and the air thickened with the resinous bite of pine. Rocks jostled the undercarriages, dust clouds billowing like smoke signals, but the riders pressed on, a phalanx of loyalty cutting through the wilderness. Jax rode point now, his bike adapted for rough terrain, the prosthetic no hindrance to his vigilant sweep of the ridges. Miles in, the trap sprung, a checkpoint disguised as a routine patrol, squad cars blocking the trail's mouth. Lights flashing in staccato bursts against the rock faces. Officers stepped out, badges glinting like false halos, their leader a slick type with a clipboard and a voice dripping authority. "Halt! We need to speak about a welfare check." Girl and her mother reported distressed. Harlan's influence reeked in their posture, the corruption a poison that turned protectors into predators. Hawk killed his engine, dismounting with deliberate slowness, the pack mirroring him in a wall of leather and resolve. Lily peeked from the van's tinted window, her face pale, but Clara's whisper steadied her. "Trust the angels, baby." The confrontation unfolded in the shadow of looming boulders, the air electric with tension, the distant call of a hawk slicing the silence like irony. "We're family," Hawk stated flatly, his eyes boring into the officers, taking her to real care, not the jaws waiting back there. The leader faltered, glancing at the sea of riders, 65 strong, their presence a testament to oaths that outlasted badges. Whispers of internal affairs probes, favors called in from veteran networks, began to erode his stance. The iron vow's reach extended beyond the road, into the veins of justice long corrupted. Jax leaned in, voice low. "You let this through, or the real story, the loans, the squeezes, hits every channel. Choose your legacy." The officer hesitated, the clipboard trembling slightly, the moral weight tipping like scales in the wind. After a taut eternity, he stepped aside, waving them through with a curt nod, the squad cars parting like reluctant waves. The convoy surged forward, hearts pounding in rhythm with the engines, the trail opening into freer expanses where the sun dipped toward afternoon gold. Relief mingled with vigilance, the promise evolving, not just rescue but a crusade against the rot that festered in forgotten corners. As the clinic faded into memory, Hawk felt the bonds tighten. Lily's wave had ignited a fire that now burned brighter, drawing in Sophia's healing hands, Jax's unyielding guard, Dr. Harlan's quiet alliance. This family, chosen in the dust and raw, stood against the tide, their actions a silent roar for the voiceless. But the road whispered of trials yet to come, deeper inquiries, perhaps a courtroom stand where honor would face its fiercest test. For now they rode, the desert's vastness a canvas for redemption's unfolding. If this tale of quiet courage and unbreakable vows has stirred something in you, hit that like button below. It helps these stories reach more lost souls in need of light. The afternoon sun beat down on the winding trail like a relentless forge, turning the air into a shimmering haze that distorted the jagged outlines of the foothills. Hawk's Harley cut through the dust-choked path, its engine a steady growl that masked the undercurrent of unease rippling through the convoy. The escape from the roadblock lingered like a half-smoked cigar. Victory, but fragile, the officers' retreating taillights a reminder that corruption's roots ran deep. Twisting through badges and backroom deals, Lily rode in the van with Sophia and Clara, her small hand pressed against the window, watching the riders weave like shadows against the ochre rock faces. The scent of pine resin mingled with the acrid bite of overheated brakes, a sensory tether to this newfound sanctuary amid the wild expanse. Jax pulled alongside Hawk for a moment, his chopper's tires kicking up fine grit that stung like whispers of doubt. That was too close, boss. Those badges weren't playing. Harlan's got pull, and now we're on the radar. Hawk nodded, his grip firm on the handlebars, the vibration syncing with the pulse of old scars. The betrayal during their service days, when trust in authority had crumbled like dry earth under boot. We keep moving. Safe house is an hour out, old ranch off the grid. Brothers there will hold the line. The Iron Vows network stretched like hidden veins across the desert, allies forged in shared oaths, ranchers who'd ridden with them in younger, wilder times, nurses like Sophia who'd traded fluorescent lights for the open sky. This was their creed in action, loyalty not proclaimed, but lived, one shadowed mile at a time. As the trail leveled into a sun-baked plain dotted with yucca and scattered boulders, the van's radio hummed to life with Sophia's voice, calm but edged. Clara's holding steady, but the stress is catching up. We need to stop soon. Real rest, not this bounce. Lily's chatter had quieted, her earlier fire dimmed by the chase's toll, though her eyes still sparkled with the unshakable faith of a child who'd waved to miracles. Hawk signaled the pack to ease off, scouting a sheltered hollow where ancient cottonwoods arched like protective arms over a dry creek bed. The riders dismounted in a fluid rhythm, engines ticking as they cooled, the sudden silence amplifying the rustle of wind through leaves and the distant cry of a raven wheeling overhead. Clara was helped from the van, her steps tentative on the uneven ground, Sophia's arm a steady guide. She sank onto a blanket spread by one of the riders, the fabric's coarse weave a small comfort against the baked soil. Lily scampered to Hawk, tugging his sleeve with a question that pierced the quiet. Will they come back, the bad men? He crouched, the leather of his kuta creaking, and met her gaze with the gravity of a man who'd buried too many what-ifs. They might try, kid, but promises like ours, they don't break easy. The words evoked the club's iron core, etched in the patch on his back, a fist shattering chains, symbol of vows that outlasted storms. Clara watched from her perch, her frail form straightening slightly, a flicker of resolve mirroring her daughter's. "You've given us more than a ride," she murmured, voice threading through the breeze like fragile silk. "A fighting chance." Jack set up a perimeter, his prosthetic leg planting firm as he directed scouts to higher ground, their binoculars glinting in the slanting light. The air carried the faint, earthy promise of rain from distant clouds, a rare mercy in this parched land. Stories circulated among the riders in low tones, tales of past runs, like the flood that had bonded them to Dr. Harlan, or the night they'd shielded a veteran's family from eviction by corrupt landlords. These weren't boasts, but threads weaving their chosen family tighter, each scar a badge of honor earned through quiet stands. Sophia unpacked supplies, her hands efficient as she checked Clara's vitals, the beeps of the portable monitor a rhythmic counterpoint to the group's hushed vigil. "She's responding," Sophia said to Hawk, her auburn hair catching the light like embers. "But we can't outrun this forever. The system's poisoned. Debts like hers are bait for the sharks." Twilight crept in with a velvet hush, painting the hollow in deepening blues and purples, the cottonwood's shadows stretching long like fingers of guardianship. A scout's bike returned, engine sputtering to a halt, the rider's face taut under his helmet. Word spreading, Harlan's rallying more than trucks this time. Whispers of a warrant, pinning us for interference. They're coming at dawn, full force. The revelation hung heavy, the scent of cooling metal and wild sage sharpening the tension. Hawk rose, pacing the creek bed, his boots stirring pebbles that skipped like skipped heartbeats. Memories surged, the loss of his daughter, the hollow vow he'd whispered at her grave. To stand unyielding for the small and overlooked, this was its echo, a moral crossroads where loyalty clashed with the law's corrupted face. The group gathered in a loose circle, firelight from a contained pit, flickering across weathered faces, casting dances of gold on tattooed arms and determined eyes. Clara, bolstered by Sophia's care, spoke first, her voice gaining strength. "I took loans to keep the lights on, thinking it was help, but they twisted it, fees on fees, threats when I couldn't pay. Lily's Brownies, that was our last stand." Lily nodded, curling closer to her mother, the brownie wrapper still clutched like a flag of defiance. Hawk listened, the flames crackle underscoring the ethical storm brewing. "We've seen it before," he said, voice low thunder. "Authority that serves the greedy, not the broken. But we don't fight fire with fire, we light the truth." Plans formed in murmurs, calls to veteran networks for legal shields, recordings of Harlan's shakedowns pieced from old allies, a web of exposure to unravel the enforcer's grip. Jax clapped a hand on Hawk's shoulder, the gesture solid as the rocks around them. "This family's not just riding for cover anymore, we're the reckoning." Laughter rippled softly, Lily mimicking a rider's growl, easing the weight, reminding them that redemption bloomed in these pauses, bonds forged not in battle, but in shared silence. Sophia distributed rations, the simple act of passing jerky and water a ritual of care. Her own path from city wards to this nomadic healing a testament to chosen paths over blood ties. As stars pierced the canopy overhead, pinpricks of unyielding light, Hawk felt the promise solidify. Lily's wave had summoned not angels, but guardians, their honor a blade against the dark. Yet as the fire died to embers, a low rumble echoed from the plain, not thunder, but engines. Distant, but closing. Harlan's final push, shadows lengthening into night. Hawk signaled the watch, the convoy stirring like a beast rousing from slumber. The safe house beckoned, but this trial demanded one more stand, a poetic justice where vows outshone corruption's glare. Lily's eyes met Hawk's across the glow, her nod small but fierce. The desert night alive with the whisper of legacies unfolding. The road ahead twisted toward dawn, where loyalty would face its truest test, the iron vow unbreakable in the face of the gathering storm. The night air thickened with the metallic tang of impending rain, the distant rumble swelling into a cacophony of revving engines that shattered the hollow's fragile peace. Hawk stood at the edge of the cottonwood cluster, his silhouette etched against the ember glow, the iron vow patch on his kuta catching faint flickers like a beacon in the gloom. The stars wheeled overhead, indifferent witnesses to the gathering storm, while the wind whispered through the branches, carrying the faint, oily scent of approaching vehicles. Harlan's enforcers, bolstered by whatever shadows they'd dragged from the underbelly. Lily huddled close to Clara on the blanket, Sophia's arm encircling them both, her steady presence a counterpoint to the rising tension. The girl's small face, illuminated by the dying fire, held no fear now, only the quiet trust forged from a single wave and a tray of brownies. Jax moved like a shadow among the riders, his prosthetic legs silent on the soft earth as he directed the perimeter. 10 trucks, maybe more, he murmured into the comms, binoculars pressed to his eyes, the lenses glinting under the moon's pale scrutiny. They're fanning out, trying to box the hollow. Hawk nodded, the old fire in his veins igniting not with rage, but with the unyielding clarity of a promise renewed. This was the crux, the moral precipice where loyalty clashed against corruption's crude fist. Memories cascaded, his daughter's faint smile in that sterile room, the vow he'd etched into his soul under a similar starlit vigil to shield the overlooked from the world's grinding wheel. Lily's intervention had pulled him from wandering exile, reminding him that redemption wasn't a solitary path, but a convoy's shared burden. The enforcers crested the ridge, their headlights slicing through the darkness like accusatory blades, tires crunching over loose stones in a gravelly symphony of intrusion. Harlan led the charge, his stocky frame silhouetted in the lead truck's cab, face twisted in the harsh glow of dashboard lights. He killed the engine first, boots hitting the ground with a thud that echoed his overconfidence, flanked by a dozen men, rough-hewn types with the hollow eyes of those who'd traded conscience for coin. "End of the line, biker," Harlan bellowed, his voice carrying across the hollow like a poorly aimed shot. "You meddle in debts that ain't yours. Hand over the woman and the kid, or we make this official." The word official dripped with irony, laced with the rot of badges bought and loyalties sold, the same poison that had scattered the Iron Vow years back during a botched aid run. Hawk stepped forward, the riders rising behind him in a wall of leather and resolve, their engines idling low like a chorus of restrained thunder. The air hummed with tension, the scent of exhaust mingling with the earthy promise of raindrops beginning to patter on the leaves. Sophia shielded Lily and Clara, her voice a soft murmur of reassurance amid the standoff, while Jax positioned the flank, his hand resting near his belt. Not for violence, but for the recorder tucked there, capturing every word, every threat. "This isn't about debts," Hawk replied, his tone even as canyon stone, eyes locked on Harlan's. "It's about the truth you've buried under your squeezes, loans that trap the desperate, enforcers who play judge without mercy. We're not handing over family." The word family hung heavy, a declaration that bound the hollow's occupants tighter than blood ever could, chosen kin, forged in the desert's unforgiving forge. Harlan laughed, a bark that rang hollow against the rider's unblinking stare, but his crew shifted uneasily, the numerical edge blunted by the Iron Vow's aura of unbreakable oath. Rain began in earnest now, fat drops hissing on the embers, turning the ground to slick mud that sucked at boots and tires alike. One enforcer lunged forward, gesturing wildly toward the van, but Jax intercepted with a firm hand. His prosthetic a steady barrier. "Back off," Jax growled, voice low and laced with the weight of shared scars. "We've got tapes, your calls, your threats. This rolls out, and your whole web unravels. Choose, walk away, or face the light you fear." The recorder's red light blinked faintly in the downpour, a silent ally in the ethical siege, exposing the corruption that thrived in shadows. Lenders tied to officials, a system that devoured the vulnerable while preaching protection. The storm peaked, lightning cracking overhead like divine punctuation, illuminating Harlan's faltering sneer. Water streamed down his face, mixing with sweat as doubt crept into his ranks. Whispers of internal probes, veteran networks already stirring. The Iron Vow's reach extending like roots through parched soil. Clara rose shakily from the blanket, Sophia at her side, her voice cutting through the rain like a fragile clarion. "You took from us when we had nothing left. But these men, they gave without asking." Lily nodded beside her, clutching the brownie wrapper, its edges sodden but intact, a symbol of the small act that had summoned this tide of justice. Harlan's eyes darted, calculating the unraveling. Exposure meant not just loss of power, but the poetic fall of a man who'd built his empire on broken promises. In that suspended moment, thunder rolling like applause, Harlan raised a hand, surrender masked as retreat. "This ain't over," he spat. But the fire had gone out, his crew piling back into trucks that fishtailed in the mud as they withdrew, tail lights fading into the storm-swept night. The hollow exhaled, rain easing to a drizzle that washed the tension from the air, leaving behind the clean scent of wet earth and renewal. Hawk turned to his brothers, the pack closing ranks in a circle of sodden solidarity. Jax clapping shoulders with a grin breaking through the weariness. Sophia checked Clara one last time, her smile warm as the clouds parted, revealing stars once more. "Stable, ready for the safe house." Lily ran to Hawk, wrapping her arms around his leg, the embrace a seal on the vow that had carried them through. Dawn broke with a soft glow. The convoy rolling out from the hollow toward the ranch, a sprawling outpost hidden in the foothills, its fences weathered but strong, a haven woven from old alliances. Engines hummed in harmony, the road slick but sure under tires, the desert awakening in hues of rose and gold. Clara rode in the van, Lily chattering about future brownies baked in a real kitchen, while Hawk led with a lightness he hadn't felt in years. The ghosts of his daughter quieted, not erased, but honored in this legacy of quiet courage. The safe house welcomed them with open arms, bunks for rest, a mechanic's shed for the bikes, and Sophia's domain to oversee Clara's full recovery. Whispers of ongoing justice circulated, tapes forwarded to trusted channels, the web of corruption beginning to fray under the weight of truth. Months blurred into healing rhythms at the ranch, the Iron Vows network providing the shield Clara and Lily needed. Legal aid from veteran brothers, treatments funded by rally collections, a community garden where Lily's brownies became a staple, their chocolate warmth binding the chosen family tighter. Hawk watched from the porch one evening, the sun dipping low, painting the horizon in familiar crimson, as Lily waved not from a roadside but from a swing, her laughter mingling with the cicada's song. Jax joined him, prosthetic leg propped on the rail, a beer in hand. "Her wave changed us all, boss. Promise kept." Hawk nodded, the old wound a scar now, not a chain, the redemption complete in acts that echoed beyond the road. In the end, justice unfolded not in courts of stone, but in the quiet unraveling. Harlan's operation exposed, lenders scattering like dust devils, the system nudged toward accountability by unyielding honor. Clara regained her strength, Lily bloomed in safety, and the Iron Vow rode on, guardians of forgotten promises. One girl's wave had summoned 65 angels, weaving a tapestry of loyalty that outlasted storms, a moral light piercing the cynical dark. Thank you for riding this journey with us. If these tales of honor and heart move you, subscribe for more. Let's keep the promises alive, one story at a time.